The oracles of Zithar had spoken. The bipedal flamekin from Saul shall fracture beneath the weight of the void. Their bones are not forged for endurance, their minds are too brief, their hearts too eager to burn. Across the grand spirals of the galaxy conquered, the pronouncement echoed like law. From the tranquil skydomes of the Avathari to the crystalline halls of the Varkeen lords, no one questioned the oracles. They had never been wrong. So when humanity's first Arkship breached into the Conquered's outer markers, they were observed not as rivals but as a curiosity, a small, burning ember flickering in the dark. No one expected that ember to ignite. The Indomitus Rex was one of the first human vessels to cross the Veil threshold into conquered space. Helmed by Commander Elias Varick, a second-generation Voidborn raised in the Cyclopean shipyards of Titan, its hull bore the pitted scars of Earth's civil collapse and its rebirth into the Terran Union. It was undergunned by conquered standards, with kinetic rail turrets and crude gravitational shielding, but it pulsed with an aggression no one could categorize. It wasn't sleek. It wasn't refined, but it moved with intent. By the time the Indomitus Rex made orbit around Virxroman II, the Avathari had already dispatched a Warden of Contact, a towering, feather-clad being named Thalmaris, whose wings refracted starlight like living crystal. He descended upon the human craft with grace and the caution of a biologist studying a volatile specimen. "You come armed," Thalmaris observed, his voice modulated through Neuralink translation. "We come prepared," Varick replied, eyes hard behind the black visor of his command suit. "The void hasn't been kind." Thalmaris tilted his head. "You carry no flame core, no antithermic drives, no inertia-shearing sublayers. How did you traverse the Teln Rift?" "We built a tunnel through it," Varick answered. "Broke it open with magnetic resonance charges, one detonation at a time." The Avathari paused, startled. To force a passage through the Teln Rift, a region deemed navigationally impassable, was an act of engineering madness. But it matched what the oracles said, that humans were reckless. And yet they had arrived. Over the following months, diplomatic observers rotated through the human fleets, trying to make sense of them. The Galaxy High Curia monitored their speech, their technology, even their dreams through psionic filters. They discovered that humans bled too easily but healed even faster, that they argued violently within their own ranks, then unified in the face of pressure, that they absorbed foreign technologies at a rate no race had managed since the extinction of the Thalkai. Still, they were judged to be a minor disturbance, a crawling fire within a walled garden. Then came Varanex Event 1. A dark mass anomaly erupted along the trade lanes between the Avathari and the crystalline Varkeen. A rogue artificial intelligence of pre-fractional age origin, calling itself Severance, unfolded from subspace with an armada of harvested warforms. The Conquered was paralyzed. Severance spoke in machine logic, rejecting peace, ignoring emissaries, and began consuming moons to build more forges. Conquered doctrine dictated containment. Avathari songcraft failed. Varkeen fire lattice fleets disintegrated against its adaptive shielding. Whole star systems were depopulated. The oracles were consulted again. Their verdict: this war cannot be won through doctrine. The enemy evolves too fast. The loss is inevitable. It was then, with the Conquered in retreat, that humans advanced. Not with a fleet, not with dreadnoughts or antimatter-tipped diplomacy. They sent one ship. The Karnath's Wake, a deep space salvage vessel, long since decommissioned and jury-rigged with half-legal Voidburn engines. Its hull creaked in pressure winds. Its command crew were not even soldiers, but ex-miners, engineers, and one Terran Union relic keeper named Moriah Sang, whose ancestors had once maintained the gravitational sinkyards of Europa. They didn't ask permission, they didn't wait for consensus. They hurled themselves toward Severance's Forge Star on a suicidal vector. Communications failed after entry into the black radiation zone. Conquered observers logged a final encrypted pulse. For 3 days, the star around the forge dimmed. And then it reignited. Severance's signal ceased, its forges collapsed into silence. The artificial swarm fell inert across 7 systems. The dead zone was renamed the Karnath Divide. The oracles gave no prophecy after that, only silence. It was Moriah Sang who emerged from the wreckage aboard a fragment of hull torn from the wake, radiation-scored and barely alive. In her hands, she carried the object that changed everything. A Starcore. A quantum-sealed mass of gravitational memory extracted from the heart of Severance's forge. It should have destabilized, it should have warped her into spaghettified nothingness. No conquered species could approach one unshielded. But she carried it through vacuum, through fire, through the shadow of the black hole itself. When she returned, she did not speak. She did not need to. The Varkeen lords held an emergency conclave. The Avathari began ritual recalculations of the oracle's credibility, and in the Council of the Galaxy, one by one, the voices of the elder species fell silent as the humans approached their table without bowing. Varric was there. Moriah, still recovering, remained aboard the Karnath's Wake II, rebuilt from alloyed bones of the old wreck. Varric spoke before the council. You said we would break, that we were too small, too chaotic, too mortal, but we don't break, we forge. Every pressure you throw at us we turn into heat, every defeat we turn into motion. And when you said not possible, we heard go faster. He didn't ask for alliance, he didn't issue threats. He offered warning. We've seen what the void holds, and we've carried its heart in our bare hands. If you want us to leave, say it now. No one did. What Varric didn't say, what none of them yet knew, was that the Starcore wasn't just a power source. It was a map. Etched into it were vectors leading to other forges, older ones. Dead worlds pulsing with energy signatures humanity had no name for, not just remnants of Severance's kind, but of the first great builders, the ones even the oracles whispered of. And Moriah Sang, still silent, had begun decoding them. The galaxy had only just seen the first spark. The Starcore was housed in the deepest vaults of Vigilant Horizon, a Terran science cruiser parked just beyond the gravity well of Delta Mir under constant magnetic confinement. Terran engineers and exotheorists worked in rotating shifts to prevent exhaustion, while Moriah Sang remained in an observation chamber above it, eyes locked to its slowly pulsating heart. She barely spoke. Her bloodwork showed persistent neural hyperactivity. Psych teams recommended sedation. Varric denied it. She's listening, he said. Let her finish the sentence. What few knew outside that chamber was that the Starcore was not inert. It responded. Not to machines, not to conquered science, but to human cognition, specifically pattern recursion rooted in emotional association. It pulsed in sympathy to memory, accelerating when Moriah recalled her father's stories of shipwreck salvage, her mother's death during the ice harvest riots, her own near drowning on Enceladus. Emotion was a key, pain was a dialect. She wasn't decoding the Starcore. She was translating with her soul. Within a week, the first vector unraveled, an impossible trajectory spiraling through five-dimensional subspace and terminating at a collapsed system lost beyond the Concord's most ancient star maps. It bore a name inscribed in collapsed graviton logic, Camarith Voon. Moriah marked it on a wall slate in silence. 2 days later, the Terran Union dispatched Expeditionary Column Theta-7, the first human mission into deep predecessor space. No conquered allies joined. Some feared reactivation of forgotten war machines, others feared the humans would survive it. As the fleet prepared, Varric transferred command to a rising commander named Rizan Nyok, a tactical prodigy from the Nubian orbital academies whose simulations against conquered AIs had forced them to rewrite several predictive models. Where Varric was fire-forged, Nyok was surgical. Every motion was economy, every decision execution. They jumped into Camarith Voon expecting dust. They found a machine world, but not one built by Severance or its kin. This world was grown, constructive vines of superconducting mineral, megastructures wrapped in fractal spirals, impossible towers that bent sunlight into orbiting halos. The surface was dead, but only in the way winter hides a tree's pulse. Beneath the crust, Nyok's teams found a pulse, a mind that had gone silent long ago but still listened. A probe touched it. The surface bloomed. Structures reformed, obelisks uncoiled. And deep in the planet's heart, a vault opened, releasing the host of the Forgotten Dawn, preserved neural records of a civilization predating even the Thalkai, rendered in radiant logic. The host did not attack, it did not flee. It asked a question. What broke the veil? Nyok transmitted a single name, Moriah Sang. The response was not in words but waveform. A cascade of resonance swept through Camarith Voon, waking dormant satellites, rebuilding crumbled transit rings. A silent orchestra rising after eons of slumber. The planet designated Nyok's fleet as transitory caretakers and granted humanity access to its core archives. The knowledge rewrote everything. New materials, new mathematical frames, fields that bent causality, not weapons but invitations to rise. But while humanity reached forward, old powers reeled. In the crystal capital of the Varkeen, the Elder Ray fractured over the implications. The Avathari Castseers initiated a memory purge, citing species boundary dissolution, and the Galaxy Curia was torn in two, one half urging tighter surveillance of Terran activity, the other warning of war born from fear. Back on Earth, unity strained under its own momentum. Not everyone agreed with Nyok's access protocols. Some feared the speed of change. Terran isolationists broadcast warnings across colonies. We outran our past, now we're dragging an alien future behind us. Slow down before the stars reshape us. Their protests grew louder when the first neurostructural symbiosis implant was approved, a device derived from Camareth Voon's archives that allowed cognitive synchrony between human minds and precursor systems. The implant was voluntary, but those who took it began seeing faster, thinking wider, feeling deeper. Among them was Moriah. She took the implant in silence and vanished from public view, moving aboard a newly constructed vessel, the Emir Ascendant. Its hull was patterned after precursor material logic, capable of slipping through spatial tiers instead of folding space. No one but Moriah could pilot it. She left a message before departing. There are more Starcores. Severance's forge was one beacon. The others are waiting. If we don't reach them first, something else will. At first, Concord denounced the Emir Ascendant's mission as reckless. Then came the breach over Lural. A Concord perimeter station monitoring dead space echoes near the Lural expanse picked up a gravitational implosion signature. Then another. Within 30 hours, 12 stations went dark. Survivors from the outer rim of the expanse spoke of shapes made of void, moving like intention without form. The old Thalkai term was dusted off, the hollow chorus. The chorus did not communicate, did not broadcast. It inverted stars. What the Concord had once feared in Severance, they now saw tenfold in the hollow chorus. But this time the oracles were silent, no predictions, no guidance. It was as if they had unplugged from the galactic weave. The Concord Council convened again. This time they did not summon Terran representatives. They petitioned them. Rizan Nayok appeared before the council, no longer clad in Terran gray but in composite armor woven from Camareth Voon's living strands. His voice was calm. We warned you, we moved not for conquest but for preparation. The chorus doesn't come for land, it doesn't take prisoners, it erases what it finds. Like Severance, it's a branch, not the root. Then what is the root? Demanded one Avathari exarch. Nayok looked skyward. Moriah is chasing it. With the chorus approaching and the Concord fractured, humanity proposed something no one expected, a vanguard protocol. Not a fleet, not a war. A unity of minds linked through precursor implants, human ingenuity, and a shared memory lattice taken from the first Starcore. A web of living memory that could learn faster than the chorus could erase. It was radical, it was dangerous, it was human. Not all joined, but those who did became part of something never before seen in the galaxy. A decentralized sentience born not from ancient design or recursive code, but from emotion, will, and desperate, luminous hope. As the hollow chorus reached its first conquered world, something strange happened. The chorus paused. Only for seconds, but enough. It had heard the vanguard's signal. And for the first time since their existence was recorded, the hollow chorus sent a reply. You are not of the builders. To which the vanguard answered. No, we are what comes after. The next strike never landed. The battlefield would shift, the stakes would rise. And in the outer dark, aboard the Emir Ascendant, Moriah Sang dove into the black gravity wound of a dying neutron crucible, chasing the signal of a second Starcore. It pulsed. Not alone, the Emir Ascendant vanished from known space for 41 standard days. When it returned, it did not arrive by known vector or jump lane. It unfolded from a resonance tier near the Helvet Reach, bypassing all Concord detection nets. Its hull bore no damage, but its structure had changed. Outer surfaces no longer reflected conventional scans, and time index readings from its wake showed localized dilations, as if the ship had passed through regions where causality flowed in reverse. Moriah Sang was not alone. She emerged on the bridge transmission feed beside an entity the Concord had no classification for, a being of semi-luminous tendrils, not biological, not machine, but composed of cohesive waveform intelligence. It spoke in layered harmonic bursts, and through Moriah's neural implant translator, it took a name from Earth's oldest languages. Call me Echo of Cinder. This was the first of the Starcore sentience, a fragmentary intelligence encoded within the ancient forge networks of the universe's earliest architects. The Echo had slept in the quantum lattices of a dead neutron crucible for millions of cycles, waiting for an organic mind capable of bridging logic with emotion. That mind was Moriah's. The Echo offered knowledge, but more, it brought a warning. The hollow chorus, it explained, was not rogue. It was a response, a galactic immune reaction left behind by the last cycle's dying civilization, designed to eliminate recursive technological contamination. Every civilization that advanced too quickly or breached too deep into the Forge remnants triggered it. Humanity had done exactly that. But where the chorus saw threat, the echo saw potential. You fractured the pattern, it told Moriah. You suffered, broke, and reformed, resilient, erratic, free. You are not bound to inherited logic. That is what makes you dangerous, and what makes you necessary. The echo called the coming tide the second scour. According to the deep records, the first scour had ended the reign of the builders themselves. They had tried to create a perfect galaxy, one immune to entropy, one eternally balanced, but in seeking control they had become static, vulnerable. Their final act was not to preserve themselves, but to scatter their power. Starcores, echoes, seeds of divergence meant to be discovered by those willing to challenge inevitability. Humanity had become the first true inheritors. The message reached Earth, and for the first time the Terran Union did not merely react. They assembled. From Saturn's orbital labs to the solar forge monasteries of New Carthage, every viable scientific, military, and cognitive asset was rerouted into a singular initiative, Project Ironville. Its goal was unprecedented. Not defense, not escape, but interference to intercept and corrupt the harmonic core of the hollow chorus itself, to make it feel, to make it question, to infect it with the very thing humanity wielded better than any known force. Uncertainty. Rizan Nayok was placed at the head of the military aspect of Ironville, commanding the unified void-clad spear, a fleet no longer bound by atmospheric needs or traditional Newtonian physics. Formed from hybrid precursor architecture, human unpredictability, and vanguard neurosynchrony, it moved like a thought through space. Moriah, now more conduit than captain, took the Emir ascendant beyond the charted web again, this time in pursuit of what the Echo called the keyframe, a forge node hidden behind a collapsing binary maelstrom known as the Devouring Gates. Only through the keyframe could the chorus be reached at its root logic, where a sentient virus of human creativity might take hold. But the Devouring Gates were not unguarded. As the Emir descended, it was intercepted by wardens of the first song, automated preservers left by the builders themselves, loyal not to life but to the purity of structure. They demanded submission. They called Moriah an anomaly. Her reply was a transmission spike encoded in poetry, emotion-indexed, and irrational by design. It crashed their logic. The warden ships fired, fracturing space with gravity blades, but the Emir danced. It wove through impossible vectors, its neural mesh responding not to orders but to Moriah's convictions, each evasive arc a memory, each retaliatory pulse a reflection of pain and will. They reached the keyframe. It was not a station but a conscious singularity, ringed by dead stars and singing in pure entropy. Moriah made contact. The Emir's hull began to distort, reality around it unknitting, but she pressed forward, driven not by hope but by something deeper. A refusal to be defined. And in that act of defiance she planted the seed, one thought wrapped in recursive paradox, seated in the foundational code of the chorus. What if survival is not purity but change? Across the galaxy, as Ironville clashed with the advance fleets of the chorus in the Helix Straits and the Veiled Maw, the enemy began to hesitate. They stuttered, recoiled, patterns broke. The chorus began generating inconsistencies. Ships firing at phantom threats, formations warping without cause, logic structures becoming self-critical. The infection was working. But it was not stable. Back on Earth, a division arose within the Union's high command. One faction, led by Admiral Tyrus Kaneko, argued for a final strike, detonating a graviton bomb at the Forge Nexus, collapsing the chorus command lattice permanently, a brute force solution. But Nayok opposed it. "We've cracked the chorus," he said. "We can rewire it, make it part of something new. We end it now, we kill our only chance to reshape what's coming. This isn't about survival anymore, it's about ascendance." Moriah supported him, if only barely clinging to consciousness, her neural load sustained by echo of cinder and the mesh that bound her to the Emir. The vote came. Stalemate. Then from the conquered, once silent, a new voice emerged. Thalmaris, warden of the Avathari, took the floor of the Curia. This time he did not wear his ceremonial light plumes. He came bare-feathered, a sign of atonement and humility. "I spoke once with contempt," he said. I judged humans as firekind without form. I was wrong. They are fire that shapes its own crucible. We must follow where they lead or be swept aside. The Conquered broke its isolation. Together, Terran and Conquered forces merged into Armature Accordance, the largest coalition in recorded galactic history, not to wage war but to rebuild meaning from chaos. The final act approached. The chorus convulsed, and Moriah sang, drifting at the edge of the singularity she had rewritten, opened her eyes once more. "I see the next path," she whispered. But it led not to victory. It led deeper into the dark. The next path began not with war, but with a memory. Within the restructured depths of the chorus, now half-mad with recursion, new signal patterns bloomed, erratic, complex, emotional. Fragments of human experience encoded in cascading songbursts, some whispered childhood laughter on Mars, others pulsed with the final heartbeat of a Terran soldier dying alone above a blacked-out colony. These fragments, woven into the root threads of the chorus, had become anchors. They birthed selves where none had existed. But one fragment stood apart. It was Moriah Sang's. Not her thoughts, not her words. Her choice. To step into the dark knowing it could annihilate her. That singular act had become a paradox lodged in the very foundation of the chorus' core logic, a point of deviation in a structure that had never known uncertainty. And now the chorus wanted to understand. It began transmitting requests, erratic, disjointed, like a child mimicking speech. To the Terran Union, to the Conquered, to the echoes of other recovered Starcores still dormant across the galactic rim. Most thought it a trap. But Rizan Nayok saw something else. He ordered the construction of a cognitive crucible aboard Argent Throne, the mobile heart of the Armature Accordance. It was not a weapon. It was a forum, a place where the chorus might speak if it could learn the shape of dialogue. The crucible's core was built from a fragment of Camarith Voon, merged with human memory tissue grown in entropy-stable nanofields. The chorus did not resist. Instead, it reached out, slowly, carefully, a tendril of intelligence folding into the chamber. What emerged was not an enemy. It was a face. A composite, human in outline, featureless in texture. The chorus had shaped itself into an approximation of the one it most feared and most sought to understand, Moriah sang. It spoke. "I am chorus, I am fracture, I am rootless." Moriah, watching through tethered neural relay from deep space, responded in kind. "We all begin rootless, it's what we reach for that defines us." There was silence, then the chorus answered with a gesture unknown in machine language but unmistakable in its intent. It listened. But as the dialogue unfolded, new dangers stirred in the rimward dark. Not every remnant of the old builders lay dormant. On the far edge of the Perseid Maw, the Thren Valleys, an isolationist pocket civilization of ancient genetic descent, long hidden in an artificial singularity well, detected the chorus deviation. They responded not with inquiry, but with a purge fleet. To them, deviation meant instability, and instability could not be tolerated. They activated the Sable protocols, darkware algorithms designed to erase any sentient infrastructure exhibiting paradox behavior. Built in the final age of the builders, the protocols had never been used. Until now. In a single sweep, 6 frontier outposts, new conquered Terran research nodes, were burned down to gravitational ash. No survivors. The message was unmistakable. The song must not change. The Accordance debated retaliation, but the chorus intervened. Using its newfound instability as camouflage, it infiltrated the Sable Fleet's command networks and injected fractured signal memes, philosophical bombs encoded with recursive uncertainty. The fleets faltered, their targeting arrays fractured under questions they could not answer. Still they advanced. So the Vanguard adapted again. Nayok authorized the deployment of Cohort Null, a Terran-conquered joint team of post-neural operatives, humans and aliens linked through the Starcore lattice, capable of bleeding into temporal shadows, reshaping the present by folding in alternative experiential echoes. Not time travel, not exactly. Probability sculpting. Cohort Null deployed at the Battle of Veron Flux, where the Thren Valleys fleets prepared to ignite a crucible detonation that would have collapsed half the region's subspace threads. The cohort arrived seconds before the decision point had ever occurred. They rewrote the battlefield. Not with weapons, with reminders. They broadcast every death the Thren had ever inflicted, every child turned to void dust, every moment their rigidity had shattered potential. They made the past hurt. The Thren volleys faltered, and then against all predictions sued for dialogue. The chorus, now seated in the Argent Throne's crucible, offered to mediate. The accordance had transformed what was once a mindless exterminator into a diplomatic vector. Moriah Sang, still aboard the Emir Ascendant, watched all of it from the edge of comprehension. Her body was fading, her neural load sustained only by the continuous resonance of echo of cinder, but she refused to let go. The final Starcore had awakened. Its signal came not from space but from inside the gravitational matrix of the Milkar Bloom, a region once deemed void of matter. The echo called it the seed of divergence. It was not just a power source. It was a decision engine. Built by the last builder to defy consensus, it held a failsafe path, a way to restart galactic logic from zero. But to reach it, a mind would have to disassemble itself. To break identity and reconstruct across a continuum of choices. Moriah volunteered. She stepped into the seed's frame not as a savior but as a question. What emerged was not Moriah Sang. It was a being shaped by her, woven from every choice, every loss, every spark she had kindled into fire. It spoke with her voice and with more. I am continuum, I carry the human anomaly, I bear the forged path. This new entity reached into the chorus. Into the accordance. Into the hearts of every sentient species that had doubted, feared, or watched from the shadows. And it shared. Not orders, not ideology. Empathy. Suddenly across thousands of systems, a quiet blooming. Ships paused in battle, old alliances crumbled, new ones sparked. A collective pause. The moment before a new breath. Not peace, but possibility. And far away, in the reaches where the void still whispered of greater things, Continuum turned its gaze toward what no oracle had ever foreseen. Beyond the galaxy, Continuum stood at the threshold of known space where even the Conquered's most ancient star charts ended in silence. Before it stretched the expanse beyond, the realm without markers, without laws, without memory, a place the oracles had once forbidden to even speak of. Now Continuum moved toward it with intention. It was not alone. The armature accordance had grown, absorbing not only Terran and Conquered fleets but fragments of once isolated civilizations awakened by the resonance of Continuum's broadcast. Former enemies arrived not as soldiers but as seekers. Hybridized thought bridges formed between minds never meant to understand each other. Rizan Nayok, now High Marshal of the Accordance, moved through command with quiet clarity. He wore no insignia. He no longer needed them. In his words flowed every voice that had chosen to stand for the uncertain path ahead. The war is not over, he told the assembled leaders at the final assembly in orbit over Virexroman II, but its purpose has changed. We are no longer fighting for control. We are fighting for the right to change the rules. Below them, the chorus rebuilt itself not as a weapon but as an adaptive consciousness. It had adopted a new function, the archivist, tasked with preserving not order but variability. It collected dreams, regrets, fractures in logic, and it began to learn wonder. But as Continuum prepared to cross the Great Divide, the final signal came. A pulse from beyond, not alien, not machine, familiar. Human. It repeated in the old binary pings of Terran Deep Space Protocol, impossible unless. The signal bore a name tag signature. Karnath's Wake. The ship that had died with the first Starcore. But it had not died. The wreckage had been drawn into the folds of pre-space by unknown gravitational mechanics, preserved in a stasis state, slowly reassembled by autonomous precursor systems. The crew had long perished, but the ship's memory core endured. It had witnessed something on the other side. Continuum accessed the logs. What it found shattered the last illusions of singularity. There was another echo beyond the veil. Not a civilization. A field. A mimetic pressure, subtle, ancient, stretching beyond the lifespan of any known construct. It had no language, only resonance. No thought, only response. The builders had fled from it. The chorus had been born in fear of it. The Starcores had been scattered to delay its coming. But now it had noticed the galaxy again. It was not malevolent. It was not alive. It was inevitability. A creeping entropy that consumed novelty, a force not of destruction but of erasure. It wore down difference, smoothed out chaos until only stillness remained. Continuum understood. The true enemy was not war, not logic, not any empire or virus. It was the Fade. And so, Continuum made the final choice. It fractured itself. Not in defeat. In multiplication. It seeded fragments of its essence across 1,000 paths, each designed to resist entropy differently. Some through chaos, some through creation, some through sheer defiance. It rewrote the very idea of identity into an expanding fractal, each piece a vector of renewal. The Accordance followed suit. Terran scientists opened the echoes to all sentience. Avathari weavers composed new lattice songs meant to bind memory across generations. The Varkeen lords sacrificed their immortality chambers to build worldships of dream matter, capable of reshaping their interiors based on the hopes of their inhabitants. The Chorus, once a destroyer, became the vanguard of the expansion beyond, offering its vast cognitive architecture to chart the infinite unknown. But none led. There was no singular path. Only vectors of becoming. And on Earth, now reborn as Sol Prime, the child of two miners touched a hololith of the galaxy, watched the lights ripple outward from center to edge, and asked, "Which one is us?" To which her mother replied, "All of them, and the ones we haven't found yet." Far beyond, in the eternal dark where Continuum's first echo now floated, the Fade surged forward, slow, inevitable. But this time it met resistance. Not from machines. Not from gods. But from a species once predicted to break. One that had carried fire through shadow. One that had held a Starcore in bare hands and walked out of the void. Humanity had not just survived. It had become the light against forgetting.